Welcome back to WCB Jazz Vinyl. I've got a short video today. What I'm going to do is the 2024 jazz tag that was proposed by Rob, aka The Waxed. This is the first time that I've ever done one of these. My channel was still so new at the beginning of 2023, and this vinyl tag is typically something that happens at the beginning of the year. So anyway, I missed it last year, and this year I wasn't going to do it, and then I saw everybody else doing it, and now I've decided to do one, even though I'm probably the last person, because usually people do this right at the beginning of the year. So what is the purpose of a vinyl tag, or in this case, the jazz vinyl tag? It seems to me to be, I guess, a couple of things. One is that it's like sort of a ready-made topic that anybody can do a video on. And so for folks who either struggle to come up with topics or are just looking for something to do that, again, they can just sort of follow, it's an easy thing to do. And then the other is that it's an easy way to search for other channels who are participating, right? So if you search for the Jazz Vinyl Tag 2024, you're going to get exposed to a number of channels that maybe you previously weren't aware of. And so I like the idea of that as well. So before we dive in, as always, like, subscribe. You can follow me over on Instagram if you'd like. I post there every day. And without further ado, let's just dive right into it. All right, so if you want to follow along, I've got each of the sort of the 10 bullet points in the description, and that's going to dictate sort of the order for today. And the first one is show a jazz album that you received as VCLT. I got to be honest, I had no idea what that meant. I had to ask. It means Vinyl Community Love Train. I still don't know what that means. So what somebody explained is that it's when you receive a record as a gift from somebody in the vinyl community. So in this case, what I ended up going with, because here's the thing, I don't typically receive free records except as promos. So I don't have like friends don't usually send me records. I think the reason is because I have so much and they don't know what I don't have, maybe. So anyway, what I've got to show you though is one that I was really excited about. That was actually a brand new release in last year, and that is Courtney Pine's Journey to the Urge Within. Got this directly from Analog October, who reached out to me on the Jazz Bums Discord and offered me a copy of the record right when it came out, and so I was really excited. Hadn't heard this one before, and so not only was it a brand new reissue, but it was of a title that I hadn't heard before, and so that was very exciting. And Courtney Pine, it was sort of a in terms of the UK jazz scene, I mean, he was on it before so many of these other folks now who are really, sort of making it even more of a thing. So anyway, yeah, it was this was an excellent gift by Analog October. I was really excited to get it, and it sounds great. I think this is one of the highlights in terms of reissues of 2024 or 2023 rather. All right, next one up is show a jazz album you have in both stereo and mono. I have a bunch, but I gotta say, typically when I have a mono and a stereo record, it's only for a quick moment in time while I sort of, I test, I determine which of the two I want to keep, because you never know, right? Different records are, better sometimes in mono versus stereo, and it's not necessarily consistent across the artist or the label. It just, it really depends, I think, on how it hits you. And so oftentimes if I have something in mono and stereo, it's only because I'm about to purge one of them. There are some examples like Kind of Blue, and there's a few other things. But for the most part, I don't need copies of mono. I don't need copies of the same record in mono and stereo. But one of those that I currently have copies of in both formats, and both originals actually, which is kind of cool, is the Thelonious Monk Orchestra at Town Hall. So as you can see, and this is a Riverside record. And this was recorded in 1959. What you can see here is the stereo badge here, and take a look at the color kind of scheme of the text there, right? So Thelonious Monk Orchestra in yellow, Town Hall in green, and then otherwise red. And then you compare that to the original mono here, which also happens to be a promotional copy, which is kind of cool. What you can see here is that not only does it lose the stereo badge for the mono, but it also has a different color scheme. One of the reasons why I still have this in mono and stereo is because of this, because of like how cool the records look and how well they were designed. I mean, don't get me wrong, that photo is not great and it's pretty blurry, but there's something about just the just the text that I really enjoyed between these two. And that's one of the reasons why, even though I don't need both copies, that's one of the reasons why I still have them, because I'm just like, it's kind of nice to look at. All right, number 3, show a jazz album that you have an original of and a reissue of. Well, folks who follow this channel know that there are quite a number of them because I'm frequently doing shootouts. But one that I haven't done a shootout on yet, and so this will be kind of new to folks, is the Lee Morgan Quintet with Take 12, originally put out on Jazzland. So my copy happens to be, you can kind of see through that onion skin or rice paper sleeve, depending on what you call it. You can see that it's a promo copy as well, so it's a white label promo, which is kind of cool. And this is a mono, by the way, so I guess I could have used this for the previous challenge as well. And what I have is as the reissue is the Vinyl Me Please edition. So this one was put out, I'm trying to remember if it was last year or the year before, but it is an all analog pressing. It is stereo. This one was cut by Ryan K. Smith, and it was pressed at RTI. So it was, I think, an excellent choice in the Vinyl Me Please kind of catalog, and I think they did an excellent job with this thing. And maybe at some point I'll do a shootout, but at this point I haven't. All right, this next one is the one that I struggled with the most, and that is show a jazz album by an artist not known for being a jazz performer. I didn't know what to do for that, and obviously, with so much of my collection, almost my entire collection being jazz, I just don't have much, I guess, that's like a non-jazz performer leading it. So I'm kind of reinterpreting this one, and what I'm doing is show an album with a jazz artist, but it's not a jazz album. That's how I'm just changing this one up because it's the only thing I can think of. So what I wanted to show you is Harold Budd's The Pavilion of Dreams. For those of you who don't know who Harold Budd is, you really have to look up his stuff. He collaborated a lot with Brian Eno, and I want to say maybe Daniel Lanois. I'm trying to remember some of the others, but even this one was produced by Brian Eno, who I think a lot of folks know. And Harold Budd, I think, was more of an experimental kind of electronic musician. As far as I know, I'm not actually that familiar with his history, but why I'm bringing this up in my sort of reinterpretation of this one is because there is a jazz performer on this thing who I think really makes the album, and that is Marion Brown. So Marion Brown is on here on alto saxophone. So Marion was famous for his work for ESP, and then on Impulse, right? He put out some fantastic albums on Impulse. In fact, I'm going to show you another one in a little bit. So this particular edition, because this is I think this is a difficult album to find in its original form. It was originally put out in 1978, but Superior Viaduct reissued this in 2021, and it sounds fantastic. And this is like electronic and percussion heavy, but Marion Brown sounds really good on this thing. So again, I just decided, hey, jazz artist that's on a non-jazz album. All right, so number 5, this is show a jazz album that was initially shelved and issued on vinyl many years after its recording. I was initially going to just go for a Tone Poet, and then I was like, that'd be too obvious, and I started looking at other labels, and then I ended up back at Blue Note, but not a Tone Poet, a Music Matters edition. So the one that I decided to choose for this is Grant Green's Gooden's Corner. This is a really good one. I mean, it's hard to find anything that Grant Green did for Blue Note that isn't fantastic, and this is no exception. You've got Sonny Clark on here, Sam Jones, and Lewis Hayes. This is really, really good. And unfortunately, and it's got, Music Matters kind of format. Unfortunately, this is one of those titles that will not be included in Tone Poet unless Blue Note decides to sort of go back on what they originally said in terms of not reissuing the Music Matters stuff and not doing it again. So unfortunately, this is one of those that's probably one of the more harder albums to get that Music Matters put out. And it's fantastic. But this, again, was one of those that it was originally recorded in 1961. And the first time that it was issued on vinyl, I believe, was in Japan in probably the late 70s, either King or Toshiba. I think that's who did it. This particular edition is probably from this is probably like 05 or something like that. But in any event, it was originally released in like 1979 in Japan. All right, number 6 is show a jazz album that was issued as a private pressing. And the one that I'm going to show you is actually one I just got in very recently, and that is Mary Lou Williams' Zoning. So Mary Lou Williams was such an accomplished artist for so long, it's perhaps surprising that she had to put this out as a private pressing on her own label. I honestly don't even look at it like that. I look at it like she probably could have recorded it for other labels, but she really wanted to have complete control over it, and so decided to put it out on Mary Records. That was her own kind of private press label, and I think she did have a couple of releases on this on that label. So if you're not familiar with Zoning, I highly suggest you check this out. It is phenomenal. Even if you think you know Mary Lou Williams' style from like some of that early like late 50s stuff that she did, you gotta give this one a listen. It's fantastic. Joining her, let's see, on this is Bob Cranshaw, Mickey Roker, Zita Carno, Milton Suggs, and then Tony Waters. But this will surprise you. It is very much in like kind of the post-bop and even borderline spiritual kind of vein. There are a variety of formats on this. It's not all like the larger group, but this is phenomenal, and I actually found it locally very recently and was just surprised to see it. All right, next one, number 7, show a jazz album that is an excellent introduction to either free jazz, avant-garde, or spiritual jazz. I chose Marion Brown. So I mentioned Marion Brown was going to come back. I'm a huge fan of his work for Impulse, and I feel like a lot of folks don't give it any attention, and I just don't get that. I really, really like Marion Brown's stuff. This happens to be Geechee Recollections, but his other albums for Impulse are also excellent. In my opinion, he's like, the reason why I think he's a good intro is because he doesn't like fill the void with like lots of notes and lots of like noise, and he's not really a noise musician. He's much more understated. He incorporates a lot of natural sounds into his music. It's very peaceful, but also typically it is free of, you know, some of the constraints like chord progressions and even sometimes rhythm, and so it does have some of the hallmarks of avant-garde and free jazz. But I just think that it's a great introduction to it because it's not quite so much out there, and it's actually pleasant to listen to. See, I don't find that a lot of the most raucous free jazz to be pleasant to listen to at all. Like I just don't enjoy it. I gotta be honest. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some albums by some musicians, like I'll listen to some Albert Ayler. I do like more of Archie Shepp's albums than ones that I don't, but for the most part, musicians who are playing spontaneous improvisation and it's loud and it's frenetic and there's just nothing to ground you as a listener, I don't like that stuff. I really like Marion Brown stuff, and so yeah, for me anyway, this was a good entry into more adventurous music, and I think it could be for a lot of folks as well. All right, number 8, show a jazz album that's an example of cheap heat. Well, I've made videos about this in the past, and one of the titles that I'm pretty sure I included in that is what I'm going to show you here, because it's the first one that came to mind, and I've been spinning it even more lately than when I first got it, and that is Chico Freeman's Peaceful Heart, Gentle Spirit. This is a record that you can find for $10 all day and all night. I've found 2 copies locally, and I think both were exactly $10. So this thing is inexpensive. It includes a lot of different styles, I would say. There's kind of like, there is some more adventurous music, but for the most part it's post-bop. You also do have like a suite of sorts, I think, towards the end that's a little bit more traditional in sound. I'm trying to remember exactly which one that is. But I really, really enjoy this. It was originally put out on Contemporary Records, as you see it here. The lineup includes James Newton, Jay Hogarth, Kenny Kirkland, Buster Williams, and Billy Hart. Actually, among others, there's a couple of auxiliary percussionists here as well, and a cello. John Koenig plays cello. So I really like this. I think that you should look up Chico Freeman's work for Indian navigation and for contemporary and pick up as many of them as you can before they become too expensive. Some of them have kind of crept up, but this one, for some reason, probably because of its uninspired cover, is still only about $10. All right, number 9, show an example of an album that you're looking forward to being reissued in 2024. I almost interpreted this in 2 different ways. One is what is actually being reissued in 2024 that you're looking forward to, or the other way to think about it is what do you wish was going to be reissued this year but hasn't been announced yet. I'll take the former approach. So there's a couple of of titles in the Blue Note Tone Poet series that I'm really excited about. One is Lee Morgan's Taru, another is Bobby Hutcherson's Medina, and then a third I would say is Donald Byrd's Kofi. I think those have been neglected for too long in terms of a decent reissue. So I'm really looking forward to those. I am looking forward also to, JMI's release of Plum. I think that that's going to be excellent. I'm looking forward to the latest Joe Henderson Jazz Dispensary title, which I reviewed but I discussed in my prior video. So those are some of the ones that I'm most looking forward to. And obviously I'm looking forward to all those last minute announcements, because there's a lot of times where we don't hear about something coming out until it's imminent, right? Like, what's the next craft small batch edition? Are we going to get Mal Waldron's The Quest in there, right? Crossing my fingers. So things like that, I would say, in fact, that answers the other interpretation is, what do you wish was going to be reissued in 2024? I hope that Craft Recordings reissues The Quest in their small batch series. Okay, and finally, show a jazz album which you consider a grail that you picked up in 2023. I'm one of those people who does not like the term grail, because I think it's overused. And one person's grail is not another person's grail. I don't know. It just seems like I don't like it. I'm not a fan of the word, but I understand the assignment. So here's the thing. I already put out a video that was my top vinyl finds of 2023, and I don't want to rehash what I already talked about, because obviously my top choice would be Lee Morgan Volume 2. Had a whole video on it when I found it, and then I included it in my top finds of 2023. I'm not talking about it again. And because I think I came up with like 12 in that list, I didn't want to cover any of those 12 again. Maybe I'll link that video in case you want to find out what the entire list is. So I had to pick something outside of that, and honestly, I don't know how much value this particular record is, but it is special, and so I am considering it. I think it's a good fit for this for this number 10. So what I chose is Monat Sudler Sextet, and the title is Brighter Days for You. This was originally put out on Steeplechase, and the reason why I'm including it is because, as you can see, this is, and sorry, there's multiple covers here, this is a test pressing. So I thought that was really, really cool. This didn't cost me very much. It popped up on eBay, and there's a lot of handwritten stuff on here. That I don't know whether it was something that the label might have done, or if it's something that, because the previous owner didn't have the jacket to go with the test pressing, maybe they decided to scrawl it out, right? So I have no idea which of the two it was, but there's a lot of information here that kind of helps make the test pressing feel like it's something a little bit more. And honestly, if you think about it, like whoever it was, if it was a prior owner, not only did they put labels on the test pressing with the titles of the songs, but they also have the ASCAP kind of thing here, which makes me think that it's something that the label did and not something that an owner would do. So on this title, and I'll show you a picture of what the album cover is supposed to look like, you do have Monat Sudler on guitar and vocals, Oliver Collins on piano, Khan Jamal on marimba. Khan Jamal is like, you basically can't find anything with him on it, because his albums, anything that he's on, ends up being like $1,000, with this, the exception of this one. Tyrone Brown on bass, Newman Baker on drums, and then there's William or Duke Wilson on congas and percussion. I'm a fan of Monat Sudler, and I believe she passed somewhat recently, maybe a year ago. And I just, I don't know, when this came up on eBay and it wasn't getting a lot of action, I think it might have cost me like $35 or $40. I'll have to go back and check. But I just thought it was super cool, because, and why I'm considering it a grail, because it just feels like it's a one-off, like it's a one-of-a-kind type of item, and it's possible there's other test pressings, don't get me wrong, but like, just feels like a one-of-a-kind item, and I love the idea of being able to have this great music in this type of format. All right, so that's it. That's the Jazz Vinyl Tag of 2024. Thanks to The Waxed for proposing this list. Thanks for everyone who's also participating, because I've enjoyed some of the other videos that I've watched. And I would encourage folks who either haven't made a video or don't make videos often to consider making one for this Jazz Vinyl Tag, because it's kind of fun. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.